Good evening. I'm Andy Agathangelo. I'm very, very proud to be the founder of the pretty damn unique campaign organization called the Transparency Task Force. We are all about helping consumers of financial services to be treated in a transparent, truthful, and trustworthy way. We really do believe that the work we do is very important, and we work hard to try to make the world a better place in one way or another. I've been thinking about how to introduce this session, and I'd like to put it like this. I've been to many concerts. I've been to many concerts, as I'm sure many of you have. I've had the pleasure of seeing The Who at Guildhall, Portsmouth, and the Police at Clapham Common, the Jam up somewhere in Leeds, Bruce Springsteen several times, including Wembley a couple of times, um, Michael Jackson at Wembley, and all kinds of other concerts like that. And I'm sure you've all got your own list of concerts that you've attended that you've really, really enjoyed. And you're probably wondering to yourself, okay, but what on earth has that got to do with the topic of finding your own path to a rejuvenated sense of purpose, passion, and possibilities? Let me explain. I'm pretty sure that on every one of those occasions when I went to those concerts, when I was having a fantastic time, the way that you do at a concert, when you're seeing a performer that you really like, when you're really getting into it, I'm sure that on every one of those occasions, at one point in the evening or another, the thought would have crossed my mind that I wished my friends were with me, or I wished more of my family was with me, or I wish that the people I care about and love are with me because I know that they would also be enjoying this and getting a lot out of it. I just wish they could have the same experience as I'm having right now in that moment, watching Springsteen or Michael Jackson or whoever it might have been, Motorhead, whoever it was. And I say this because that's very, very, very close to a moment in time a few months ago when Steve Conley was providing one of his excellent, excellent coaching sessions with me, where I became very, very sincerely joyous about the value that I was benefiting from as a consequence of Steve's work. And I think if I remember rightly, Steve, I ended up stopping him and saying, Steve, bear with me a minute. I want to just get an idea out there. I said something like, I'm finding this so helpful and it's helping me to untangle my own mind in such a great way. I would love it if we could somehow find a way for TTF members to have a chance to experience what I'm experiencing right now, because there are so many people out there who I am absolutely sure would find it helpful. And you probably remember that moment as well, Steve. And within a few minutes, we'd agreed to do something to try to make the work that you do available to others. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the background to the session we're having tonight. It's experimental. We're going into uncharted territory, but I have a very genuine sense of authentic enthusiasm for the work that Steve does because of the way I have personally benefited from it. All right. What I'd like you all to do, please, ladies and gentlemen, is approach this session with an open mind. I believe Steve to be a very, very well-informed, knowledgeable person who brings with him what I can only really describe as a sense of wisdom about all kinds of things. He's done things through our coaching process that have really, really made me scratch and think, scratch my head and think to myself, well, what do I think about that? And what really are my values? And so on and so forth. I found it to be Wonderfully helpful. No doubt I'll interject from time to time, but what I'm going to do now, folks, is simply pass this over to Steve. Steve, can you please take time to introduce yourself in the background? I want people to understand kind of where you've come from, your journey in life, the experience you had in the banks, the experience you've had since the banks, and frankly, take the conversation wherever your instincts, experience, and insights feel you want to. But before Steve starts speaking, let me put on record, I personally think Steve Connolly and the work that he does is absolutely first class. And I just hope you will find a way to benefit from it during the course of tonight's session. Steve, can we please pass over to you just before you do? Let's show our appreciation the way we normally do, folks, and Steve Connolly, because I think it's great, and I'm just really pleased we're all having a chance to hear from him today. Steve, over to you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that introduction, and hopefully you can hear me all right, all clear.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm not on mute. No, it's great. I'm really looking forward to this session. I know what I've got is something that can really help. I've got some slides I'm going to share with you. Before I go into that, though, I just, like Andy said, just explain about the banks and not the banks. So I'm 63, 64 this year. When I was 50, I was head of investments at HSBC. Been head of investments at Royal Bank of Scotland Group, head of investments Santander. I was the chairman of the BBA, British Bankers Association, Bank Assurance Steering Group, back then when we were going through the retail distribution review. At the time, the banks decided that they put profit before principles. And what happens, as you'll see as you're on this journey, when you're asking about your values and your purpose and everything, you kind of live into your values and sense of purpose, and you kind of physically progress on the psychological levels of development, and you kind of grow beyond the environment that you're in. You're very much more principle focused to such an extent, some of you may have found this, that if you continue to stay where you are in an environment where there's a bit of a culture clash, your principles are not aligned with that of your employer. If you stay in that environment, that can make you ill. That can really make it very difficult. And some people do, try to last out until their retirement in that environment. I didn't. I left, and I took a 75% pay cut in order to do that. I made huge sacrifices to set up what is the Academy of Life Plan. That was 13 years ago. It's been a difficult journey. It's been taking its toll on me personally, in my relationships. I'm now, just last year, got married again for the third time. But for me, I'm very happily married and someone who understands me, so that's great. But when I left the banks, shortly after that, I was divorced and I was penniless. I was broke. But all I did have is my capacity to earn money. So I didn't have I had to share my pension plans with my former exes. So I had a little bit left, about a quarter of my life savings left. And I used what I could to start my business, to invest in my business. And I gave half to the tax man, half to the business, nothing left, and had a good go at that. So 13 years I've been developing something called life planning, which is financial planning done properly, but we do it with a difference. We don't look for delegators. We're not looking for the whole industry looks for delegators. What happened is when I left, I set up financial planning and I started planning people, and I was shocked at what I found. Nearly everybody I spoke to had been missold product. I thought the banks were bad and the culture in there, but I found that the culture was just as bad in the small boutique world and what was going on between clients. So I decided that what I was going to do is going to help as many people as I could, and who had been exploited by financial advisors of all sorts of classes and categories. And I was going to help them not just save money they've already made, but make money in the first place. And I couldn't understand why my fellow financial planners weren't showing people how to make money. So what I'm going to share with you today is how to restore your financial position to so you have a comfortable level of income in retirement, but also so that you have wealth in every area of your life. And I'm going to talk about how we deal with the bad guys. And the way we deal with the bad guys, I have a saying, and it is the best place to find a pair of hands you can trust is at the end of your own arms. So what I'm about is empowerment, and what I'm about is showing you how to run your own finances, and I give everyone the tools and kit to do that. And we call ourselves professional allies because we're the expert on your side of the table with no conflict of interest. We don't get nothing to do with products. We just plan. And to do that one-to-one, we do it in groups, and we do it on YouTube. You can find videos of us doing it there. So it's very accessible to all, everyone can access it. So that's my journey. It's been a very interesting journey. And I'll tell you more about that as we go through. But I want to share the presentation and go into that now. But that's a little introduction to me. So let's have a look at this then. That's where I got married, actually, last year. But I'm not sure. I'm sure you're not interested in that. But here we go. Can everyone see that slide? Is that okay? We can see that. Okay. So what we've got here is reclaiming your life after financial crime. So yeah, I found many people, many an individual who regulated advisors had deprived them of their life savings. One chap who, I call him the Eggman of Adlington, had given £3 million to Wigan Financial Services, a guy called Stephen, who was a regulated advisor, and he'd put it all, the whole £3 million of his life savings into unregulated collective investments, which all became illiquid, and the guy lost everything. So I spent the next 10 years trying to get all that back for him. But you know, it's a very, that was not uncommon. That guy's now went to prison, but anyway, I did actually recover about 90% of it, what I'd lost. So that was my experience on that side of the table. But the biggest problem is not necessarily the money, it's your life and the impact it has. So we're going to have a look at that, and we're going to try and help you to not only become financially secure, but restore confidence and well-being in your mental well-being, your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, which is having a reason for being, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Those are the kind of elements. So it's your life and your money that we're trying to fix. And it requires us finding purpose in your life, finding possibilities. And it's about this empowerment. I want you to take control, take agency, take ownership for running your own finances and not trust other people to do that for you. So I want to kind of show you how to do that in the course, probably not today, but in the course of our time together. So the question I have to ask you, you know, you might be here because you've suffered as a result of some scam, scandal, financial crime. Maybe you've lost money, you've lost your security, and you've lost your trust in everybody. Perhaps as a result of that, you're struggling with anxiety, stress, or feeling of isolation, like no one's listening to you, or they've listened to you that many times that they're fed up of listening to you and they don't listen to you anymore. You get all of this. A feeling of abandonment, not just by the financial institutions and authorities, an abandonment when you try to talk to people who are meant to be there to help you, on the police meant to help you, but they treat it as a civil matter, and they tell you to go to all sorts of different agencies, and they seem to never return your calls. The thing is, you're not. Yeah.
If I may just cut in on that particular point, if I may, just very, very briefly,
Yes.
the point you make there, Steve, about feeling abandoned by financial institutions and authorities, as everyone here knows, I have so many conversations with people who've been done over in one way or another, and I would describe that if like their emotional response to what originally happened is, shock and sadness. But when it comes to how they get treated by the authorities, and frankly, how badly they get treated by the authorities, it's almost a sense of disgust. It's almost a sense of anger about how let down they are about what happens. And that's a really strong and very, very powerful energy, which I hope in some ways TTF tries to encourage people to utilize that sense of annoyance and anger, and frankly disgust about how the authorities have treated them. I just
Yeah.
want to come in on that point because it's a particularly powerful feeling I get when speaking to so many people. And whilst it's horrible that they feel that way, I'm often thinking to myself, that's an energy that can actually be turned into potentially something quite useful. Steve, back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be turning in that energy into something useful for each and every one of you and us. So yeah, that's a good point, Andy. And yeah, I could talk on this topic forever. I'm not going to. I'm going to keep it to the time we got available. I could go down lots of rabbit holes and tell you about personal experiences with various bodies who are meant to be there for consumers but aren't. But anyway, you're not alone. You've got this community here. You've got the Transparency Task Force, and now I'm introducing myself and say I'm here for you as well. You're not alone. And this session is going to be about moving you from this pain to this community of like-minded people, your tribe, I'd call this, people on your side, and an area of pain to empowerment where you feel in control. I'm going to give you some of that back that's often stolen in this situation. So just to let you know about how you do understand the impact, and you'll see why as we go on. A financial crime doesn't just take your money, it takes your well-being. So what are the life impacts? So kind of life planner. Well, the first one is emotional and mental distress, anxiety, depression, PTSD symptoms, absolutely. It's the loss of trust in the financial system. We believe the system is there to support us. It isn't. It takes a lot of navigating, a lot of navigating. And advisors, losing trust in them, can understand that. And even lose trust in personal relationships. A lot of the scams and scandals that I've come across are where advisors have not been malicious, but been stupid. And they've not only put their own money in this, they put the customers, they put friends and families' money into it as well. And obviously that then leads to breakdowns in relationship between friends and family and advisors and everybody. There's also this potential of social withdrawal and shame. And I understand shame, and I'll tell you why as we go through this, that point of shame, because people, you feel an idiot. And but here's me, I've been doing this all my life, and I've been there in that place. And perhaps as a result of this stress, the strain, the hours, the pressure, that your physical health declines. You start being prescribed with this, that, the other, and this goes wrong, that goes wrong. But not to forget the financial insecurity, the loss of pension savings, your home, all of this. I understand that. So we have to acknowledge it's not just a financial issue here, it's the full impact that. And when we acknowledge that, then when we're going to put a plan in place, we have to put plans in place to address your financial security, but also your whole person well-being. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So where do you want to be? Imagine a future where you have these things. Here you have this favorite future, which is just a few years from now. Emotional, financial stability. Inspiration. Andy talked about the feeling of being inspired by this knowing who you were, Andy, and why you're here. And it's that inspiration that you have. It lights what I call the lamp within. You become interested in life and excited about life again. It's about whole person well-being, mind, body, heart, and spirit. It's about giving you renewed confidence. Picture this: you are in a few years from now, and you have renewed confidence and a sense of purpose. You have the ability to make informed decisions yourself, confidently, and a support system that understands you and is there for you, and you have a clear path forward. So I'm telling you, this is possible, and I want to help you explore that. And I'm going to explain why as we go through. So there's change ahead. So if imagine where you are today and where you want to be a year or so from now, then I'm sure you agree you need a vehicle, system, or solution to get you from A to B. Well, that's what we're here to talk about, and it's a life plan. Okay, why is it important and why now? Well, the longer you leave it, the longer you wait, the harder it's going to become to rebuild that state of well-being and security. This external justice system, as we know, as you found, is just so slow. It takes years, 10 years for the Eggman of Adlington, and he's still trying to get back some interest on his loss. So these cases can go on 10 years, 20 years, but we need to repair you now. We need to fix things now. We need to get you into a state of well-being, of feeling mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually okay, and financially secure. The best person to help you is you. So it's all about helping you help yourself, but also it's about us being here, a support system, your peers, being involved in the process. So I'm saying it's time to take back control. Okay, why me? So that's me. About 6 years ago, I published a book. It's called Your Money or Your Life, but there's a subtitle called Unmask the Highway Robbers, Enjoy Wealth in Every Area of Your Life. And it just tells you the two sides of how I am, how I work. Unmasking the highway robbers is, I can't tolerate the scams and the scandals and what's been going on in the outside market. So I'm a CEO of an asset recovery business. That's for institutions, not for individual people. I had to give up the individual people help for reasons which are just about to become obvious. But enjoying wealth in every area of your life is the life planning, is the reconstruction, financial reconstruction and reconstruction of your well-being. So those are two elements of it. So let me first tell you about Unmask the Highway Robbers. So I was CEO of a company called Safe or Scam, but I've been helping people. Well, first of all, they want to know, is this investment safe or is it a scam? So I do an investigation and tell them. But most people didn't really ask the questions until after the event. So 90% of the queries were people who had lost their investments and savings and who were having really difficulty getting anything back because they're basically just dealing with criminals. So I set up a business and did that. But unfortunately, what happened was the scammers, the investment people behind it, the criminals, knew who I was. And then this started happening. So these are texts from about 6 years ago from, how can I say, one scammer that I'd identified. So beautiful. I'm so glad you focused on Simon again. That was another scammer. We now have a group of focused members. There's different scammers of different organizations who've been issued with team numbers and emails, and we will hunt you down wherever you hide. My job is to recruit new members, and I only have to go to your website to do this. Thanks you, Stephen, that's me, and Mike, which was my co-partner. And he was ringing. I wasn't answering his calls. I was just ignoring his texts and everything. So I got another message off someone else saying, just got my Safe or Scam pack this morning. So this is the recruitment pack. Was asked to say hello to you. Have a great day, Stephen. Missed voice call. Then they had this inaugural meeting, just concluded, of the Break Safe or Scam team. I'm in, and I can't wait to get stuck in. Enjoy, Steve. Say hello to Mike. Popping by Spilsby next week for a brew. So I live in the middle of nowhere, Spilsby, Lincolnshire, and he's saying here is going to turn up on my doorstep, this financial criminal. Which would start to worry about my family then when that started happening. I hope you're ready, as this team seems very well organised and very well funded. Not lacking in motivation either. This one is behind pictures. Howdy, Mr. Exposé. I'm in. I'm part of the team on your case. It's our turn now, Mr. Perfect. And it seems there are more than a few skeletons in your own closet. That is now threatening me. Okay, then said, good afternoon, Steve. Finally, I found out who is to blame for Safe or Scam. I joined a little group of people you have hunted for years and now know it's you behind the grief. We can turn the tables. We've all thrown some money in the pot. I mean, the problem with the criminals is they've got the money. They've got clients' money. So they've got millions and they can employ top lawyers and pay heavy people to come and knock on your door. And we on the other side have got nothing. So it's a very one-sided thing. They've all thrown money on the table to bring me and my shitty pal Mike down. Can't wait, you prick. You deserve everything that's coming. Oh, he said Google the Academy of Life Planning, because we found I also run the Academy of Life Planning, and they put loads of one-star reviews on Google for my business. So it took me years to remove them. Google wouldn't remove them. Anyway, you've upset the wrong people and it's our turn now. After giving this a lot of consideration, I stepped down as CEO of Safe or Scam. Couldn't help anymore. I didn't want to put my family at risk with these guys. So I try to help people on an individual basis, but I no longer do it as a company. That hopefully explains that. What I do on the other side, on the right side, is the Academy of Life Planning. And it's about empowerment, as I said, and I've started an empowerment movement. The Academy of Life Planning has grown now. We've got 600 planners globally and growing. This is the future. I call it the Empower Movement, and these are the key principles of it. What we're aiming to do is use this process that I'm going to share with you to eliminate income inequality and eradicate poverty. That's kind of the aims of the Empower Movement. And we do that by creating wealth in every area of your life. The game plan is the process that I'm going to introduce you to, and that's a process that we go through, a planning process, and the one that Andy's been through. And we promote ethical, self-directed financial planning. So we put in place create your favorite future. We put in place the financial architecture to support it, which you then implement yourself in a safe way. We very much use the Consumer Association as a source of where do you do it and who do you go to. So that's which money we work with. Services are available through a 3-tier model for all the needs. So you can access these services on one-to-one basis, but seeing someone who's exchanging their time for money can be expensive. So we also do it in groups where the expense is shared across the group. So instead of £5,000, it costs £500 to do a long program. But then we have a third model, which is we record the group and we make it available video on demand for £50 or something like that. So there's all sort of pricing levels, and depending on how much you want to get involved and have it personalised, but they're all equally as effective. So we're kind of doing that, and we supported community-driven initiatives for inclusivity. What we're doing is we're working now, we're on all continents. The Academy of Life Planning have ambassadors in each continent, and we are translating the game plan into 8 different languages. So I'm currently working on a Spanish version, and we're looking at rolling it out across Latin America. We've been working with the University of El Salvador, who are helping us construct the program. And in Spanish, we're looking at other languages as well. So we've got, I'll show you in a minute what the different languages are. But it's about having local ambassadors on the ground who understand the culture and also the language barriers, and we're translating all the videos and everything into the relative language. Anyway, it's about impacting, it's goals focused, it's about personal empowerment and reducing inequality. That's called the Empower Movement. I'm sure you can talk about that later. I'm going to tell you about the game plan now. Good, we're okay for time. Okay, so this is the process that we go through to fix life and money. It's called the game plan. Game plan. It stands for goals, actions, means, and execution. So it's a process, it's a strategic framework. Goals is about knowing who you are. So we begin with a personal values assessment. So you identify what your values are, or what living true to yourself is. Kind of the self-knowledge is it's about living with authenticity. Who am I? Know who you are. Why you're here is the result of what we call talents assessment. So we look at talents, with skills and everything, and we call that human capital. So the technical term for it is human capital. So your total wealth is human capital plus financial capital. We do kind of audit. London Business School do a little 5-minute free audit, so we can give you access to that. And you can ask yourself, what's my human capital? What are my intangible assets? These are the assets that through entrepreneurial opportunity can create sustainable livelihoods. And although you might have your financial assets depleted, no one can ever take your human assets, your human capital assets away from you. You always have them. And that's what I had when I took pay cut from the banks, started the business. I had human capital, know-how in abundance. It was just about entrepreneurial opportunity, leveraging that and creating a sustainable livelihood from that. So we kind of start with knowing what your assets are. But here's a really important thing. When you identify and know what your talents are, it leads to something else, which is your purpose. And through all faiths and traditions, your purpose in life is to use your talents to help other people. So this is the kind of secret source, if you like, to creating the income, is to identify what your talents are and actually use them to help others. I'm going to go a little bit more into that later on. We look at whole person well-being, mind, body, heart, and spirit. It's about rapid personal development, moving you quickly towards your ideal future. Probably talking about tops 3-year time horizon to get you back to where you want to be, what your ideal favorite future is. And we're going to try and remove obstacles by creating a plan, an action plan, and habits that are going to change your mindset so it gets you to those new opportunities. It's about empowering you. It's not about getting to a place where you're going to be delegated to some idiots and you're going to do bad things. It's about self-empowerment, becoming your own financial advisor. Jonquil Lowe, she's an author for Financial Times Press, and she's written Guide to Retirement, I think, every year for the last 39 years. Last year, I worked with her, and she launched a book called How to Be Your Own Financial Advisor. It's on FT Press, about £18, and it has everything in it that you need to be your own financial advisor. So, and he does mention the Academy on the front page when you go into it. But here's the secret sauce at the bottom. Your most valuable asset is your human capital. It remains untouched and it's ready for the rebuild. Okay. And you asked me to introduce Ian Davis. It's a sad but real life example of why this is so important, how it can be. Ian was a TTF volunteer. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Ian, my interpretation reading through everything, is a victim. He was a victim of financial crime, and he became this relentless truth seeker. But it is a tragedy which we must not ignore. So in January 2019, Ian retired. He was a retired individual in Shalt in Fife. But he unknowingly stepped into a life-altering ordeal, invested his entire life savings, which was over £600,000, into London Capital Finance, a firm which was regulated by the FCA and promoted by another FCA firm. He didn't walk away quietly. To help himself, in his own words, he said, "Get over it." He launched his own citizen investigation, that's the way to describe it. Over 4 years, tireless years, he amassed over 70,000 files. And he uncovered a global web of fraud, not just LCF. There was actually 350 interconnected companies involved in these scams globally. We collected all the information on that 70,000 files and shared the evidence with every major authority in the UK. The FCA, Action Fraud, SFO, NCA, CPS, Companies House. He even contacted MPs and ministers and professional bodies, received absolutely nothing in return. No justice, no answers. In case of ministers and MPs, not even a reply. So he lost his home, which he'd been renovating. His retirement, because he had no savings income anymore, had to return to work at 61. Peace of mind. He refused to give up. He did take a job and he worked late into the night gathering evidence. 2 a.m. in the morning, he was still working, gathering this evidence. Not for himself, but for other victims as a Transparency Task Force volunteer. But the silence from the very institutions tasked with protecting citizens became unbearable for him. And ultimately, Ian lost the will to live. His passing was marked in Parliament in March 2023 by an early day motion signed by 33 MPs. And it recorded his courage, his suffering, and the systemic failure that contributed to his death. So he took his own life. What happened to Ian must never be allowed to happen again. Why it matters. Ian's journey was one of extreme bravery, born from deep injustice. His experience epitomizes the systemic failure of regulatory and legal structures to protect victims of financial crime. His life and work, they revealed a complete breakdown of interagency accountability, a complete lack of transparency and communication between regulators, a system that punishes the victim and shelters the fraudsters. How the fraudsters got FCA regulated with the records they had and the lies that they've made. There's absolutely no due diligence done on these guys by the FCA. No, is it safe or is it a scam test was done. They just authorized them. A dangerous failure to act by the regulators, even when evidence was absolutely abundant, 70,000 records of it. So his legacy must be a call to action for us. So we believe his journey, Ian's journey, should inspire a national commitment to reform. What we'd like to see is a dedicated fund for victims of financial crime. What we'd like to see is cross-agency, proactive intelligence sharing framework so these agencies talk to one another. What we'd like to see is recognition and support for these citizen investigators and whistleblowers, and I'm sure you guys are citizen investigators. I know I am. A public commitment to justice and moral responsibility. Whenever I post anything on LinkedIn about this, I get loads of deniers, kind of financial crime deniers. Oh no, that doesn't happen. That's an isolated. Where's your statistics? And I have to bring out all these statistics about, the $1 trillion that is stolen globally every year. And, oh well, that's I'm forever having to provide evidence to support any comment that I make anywhere. So annoying. Let Ian's life be the turning point. Let us rebuild systems that serve the people and not fail them. So that brings us on to what we can do about it. What can we do about the problem? So here's the first thing, and this is my contribution. I'm going to be running a Rebuild and Thrive Life Recovery Masterclass. So it's a movement with purpose. It's free for you to attend. It's more than a masterclass, it's a pioneering journey. Like Andy said, it's not something, it's very experimental. The game plan's not experimental. We've been doing that 13 years and we've been running in groups, but applying it in this recovery operation is experimental. We certainly need to help people in poverty and income inequality create wealth, and people escape the rat race and do something they love. We do that. And people who find meaning and purpose in retirement and find work that doesn't feel like work, from which they never want to retire, we do that. But we've never done this before with victims of financial crime. And we want to see how it would work. Would it work? So we're going to run interactive, participative group sessions using the game plan. We use ChatGPT a lot as well. So as Andy found, yeah, it's an amazing tool. It's a great, the financial advisors criticize it. It says that ChatGPT has the morals of a calculator. And I say, well, that's probably an improvement on the morals of a financial advisor at the moment, from my experience anyway. It's not bias. There's no bias in it. It just tells you, it gives you a balanced, generic statement. And we kind of use that, not just the money side of it, but also in the life planning. It does amazing things and writes amazing life stories for us, and very inspirational. And we help individuals recover from financial crime while empowering them. And here's the thing that Andy, you alluded to earlier. I'm going to empower you to help other people if you're up for it. The reason I say that is because, do you remember I mentioned about the talents audit? And I said to you that we do this, London Business School can do this audit and talents. Talents isn't just things that you're good at and you're brilliant at in your career or prior to that, or hobbies and things. Life events, life experiences create talents. I did some training with the Professional Speakers Academy. A lot of people there had really traumatic life events that caused disability or abuse, relationships or abuse as a child, all sorts of life events that were very traumatic. But what became a talent is they're coping with it. And now they're kind of make a living, professional speakers globally, going and talking and helping people, going into organizations and helping people cope with overcoming whatever problem it was that they had. Because the talent is the event itself, you know, the fact that we kind of have gone through situation ourselves. I mean, I forgot to mention, that picture of me when I took that about the same time, I had amassed about £27,000 worth of savings left. And one day I got a call from BT, said that my internet had been compromised and I needed to let them have access to it. And although I was the CEO of Safe or Scam, it sounded very plausible. I checked my PC and it had been taken over and they were going to fix it for me. Of course, they fixed it while I was distracting me while they took the £27,000 out of my bank account. And so that's why I understand about the shame. I've been a financial professional all my life and I kind of let that happen to me. Fortunately, the criminals made a mistake, transferred some money because they could only take £10,000 at a time. They transferred 17,000 to a savings account and tried to transfer it back again. And the bank got alerted to it. They stopped that. So they'd only managed to get 10. And eventually, from a long time trying, I managed to get under the push payment kind of claim the £10,000 back. So I managed to get everything back, but I didn't get my pride pack for that. Anyway, so yes, I can understand. So I want you to use what's happened to you as a talent, and to then we can show you how to use that to help other people. And using the helping other people, we have something which I'm going to talk about in a moment, which is called the ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese word. It means reason for being. And it's how Japanese people work and live to an old age. And the framework is about find out what you're good at. That's your talents. Find out what you enjoy. That's your passion. It's in the title of this. So do what you're good at. Do what you enjoy. Do what the world needs. And, you know, it needs a lot of help in this area right now. And do what you get paid for. So if you can put those four things together, you're doing what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and you're getting paid for. That can give you a sustainable livelihood, and you'll be brilliant at it because it's using your talents. And that's, we can construct a business plan, a mini business plan. We can put that in your cash flow forecast and recover your financial position. So even though I've got no pensions because I had to squander all that, I do have an income for my business from work that doesn't feel like work, for which we never want to retire. We've got members in our group who are doing this, working. The oldest member is 88, I think he's 89, John. So yeah, so we kind of, he's in America. But you can find work that doesn't feel like work in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, and you can have income from it, and you don't need financial capital. It's great to have financial capital, you know, great if we can get that. But if you haven't got it, it's not the end of the world. We can actually give you a plan that's going to give you a sustainable livelihood anyway. But you can help others as well create that plan. Because I've got to show you how to do it. At this Rebuild, Thrive Life Recovery Masterclass, which is free to attend. This inaugural cohort is not just being supported, they're being prepared to support a wider global community. It's about finding purpose in what happened to us, transforming pain into power and turning experience into impact. We believe that what happened to you was not a defeat, but a gift, a unique talent shaped by experience. Our purpose now is to use that gift to lift others. So what I'm doing, and I'll give you a link, I'll put it into the chat in a moment after the presentation time, is the Rebuild and Thrive Life Recovery Masterclass. And it's this time, but on Wednesday next week, starting next week. And it'll be 90-minute sessions. It's going to be for 6 weeks. So it's going to be 6 Wednesdays. It's free. So you just register if you want to do that. I'm going to put that into the chat. You can have a look at it. After registering, you'll get an email confirmation. We're going to work through the six stages of the 6 sessions of the game plan. I'm going to work through that as a cohort. And we're going to help one another. And we're going to rebuild this Thrive, the Life Recovery Masterclass. That's what I'm doing. There's a second part to this. Okay. Oh, yes. As well as that, I'm going to give you something to take away today. It's called the Personal Ikigai Canvas. What you're good at, what you enjoy, what the world needs, and you get paid for. And you can identify those and work out what your Ikigai is, your reason for being, the art of finding meaning in life. I'm going to put those things together, and we're going to work on that on the masterclass as well. It's a little exercise if you don't want to go to the masterclass, you just want to do that. So this is a little one page, and I'm going to put a link in the chat, and you can download that and have a go at that after. I was going to do that as part of this exercise today, but I think with the extra chatting about the broader things that what I'm going to do next, probably not got the time to do that. I want to get your questions more. So I'll let you do that yourself. It's self-explanatory, and you can fill it in and see if that gives you an idea of the seed of an idea, the secret sauce, your human capital that you're going to create that's going to help you on this road to financial recovery and well-being in every area of your life, because Okinawa in Japan, in the island, it has more centenarians per head of population than anywhere else in the world. And they have a saying in Okinawa where they say, "Retiring death soon finds you." So it's about keeping active and using your mind, your energy, your health, and social connections, and having a purpose, a reason for being, to get out of bed in the morning that helps you. And in Okinawa, like I say, there's a lot of people who live to their 100 as a result of that. So we're going to use that to have a look at that. We've got this test cohort. It's free, 6-session program, 90 minutes each. And join the community support. You've got lovely like-minded people here. And are you ready to reclaim your life? Okay, what can we do about the problem number 2? So we've got a bigger vision for funding life recovery. This is where I would like your help as well. So actually, as part of the Transparency Task Force, it's Andy did mention that I was the founding lead of the market integrity team of the Transparency Task Force in the past, and helped Andy on numerous projects, one of which was presenting a white paper to MPs and about ministers about a review of the codes of conduct across the financial industry. But this is a new kind of venture that we're looking at, a bigger vision to fund life recovery. It's that fund I was talking about. If we have this fund, fighting fund, because the crooks have got all the money and we got nothing. We're fighting with peanuts and we can't do anything. So what we have is a bold yet practical idea. What if, here's the thing, what if the FCA redirected just 1% of its annual revenue, which is about £750 million a year, to create this 7.5 million independent fund supporting victims of financial crime, not just financially, but emotionally as well. So what if we could use 80% of it for direct victim support, healing life and money deficits using human capital theory that we talked about, 20% for preventative initiatives that stop people getting there in the first place. Delivered by TTF and the Academy of Life Planning. I would champion it, I would gladly lead it, but it's not a magic wand. Hopefully it's a powerful step forward. It's not certain everyone's going to agree to it, but we're going to invite organisations like Victim Support, the Samaritans, Help the Aged, and others to co-develop this proposal. To kick this off, what we would do, what we'd like to do, is write an open letter. You're familiar with Andy's open letters. And we want to call on all stakeholders, including those who failed to respond to Ian, by the way, to act. We're going to write to the Treasury Committee, the House of Lords Financial Services Regulations Committee, of course, the FCA, Financial Services Consumer Panel, APBG on investment fraud, Financial Fraud Strategy Group, and Emma Reynolds, MP, Economics Secretary to the Treasury, and more. Everyone. We've got a long list of people. And this is where I want to ask you, and we're going to go into the Q&As in a minute. We'd like you to help us write and co-sign the open letter. So it's a joint initiative. And I want to ask you, can you help us make it a reality? So those are the two things. So just before we go into Q&A, what do you have to lose by staying where you are? Everything. What do you have to gain by taking action today? Hope, optimism, passion for life, lighting the lamp within, financial recovery, emotional recovery, spiritual recovery, having a reason to get up in the morning, feeling joy, again, passion, relationships, emotional well-being, physical well-being. That's what you can gain by taking action today. So take this first step. You can download the free resource. I'm going to put it into the chat in a minute. And register for the masterclass. There's a link, there'll be a link in the chat. Or you can contact me. You can send me an email, steve@aolp.co. And, let's build a bright future together. So that is the end of that. So I'm going to put it in the chat now. I'm going to end the share. I think I've ended the share. So I'll just see if I can do the chat. Yeah. So those two resources should be coming to you now. So the registration link for the course, which is, like I say, free to attend, 90 minutes, and it's on Zoom on Wednesdays. And also a little bit of homework for you, the one-pager personal Ikigai Canvas link. Okay, so just throw it open to the floor, Andy, and ask for questions. And
Yeah. Looking forward to it. But first, let's show our appreciation to Steve. Thank you very, very much indeed. And just to be crystal clear, what Steve's setting out here, that 6 weeks program is completely free. There's no small print, there's no catch. It's literally a gift to TTF via Steve to hopefully help some of you get a bit more of a spring in your step, given what's happened to you. Many of you are victims of financial crime, scams, scandals, and have been shortchanged by the regulatory framework. Thank you very, very much, Steve. And basically, that 6 week program is what I've been through with Steve, but instead of it being on an individual basis, on a group basis, which will be different, a different experience, not necessarily better or worse, but definitely different. I personally think the synergy amongst many of you anyway will be very, very valuable because a lot of you spark off each other. I have so many meetings with TTF members where there's a sense of synergy and a sense of mutual support, and I'm really hoping that that dynamic will be part of the ethos for this initiative, which is great. Just before we go to the Q&A bit or discussion, really, the idea of the FCA setting aside 1% of its massive annual budget, which is, Steve mentioned it, I think it's £755 million a year, could do so much good, right? It could do so much good, not just in terms of helping people who've been shafted by the system or by financial criminals, but also some of the money being directed to better investigation, better enforcement, locking up the baddies. There's a complete, well, not a complete lack of, but there's insufficient activity going up to get the real culprits behind bars. So many of them are repeat offenders, and it's a huge problem. Steve, thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. We've got roughly, well, up to 20 minutes, half an hour or so to share some thoughts. I see we've got Wayne Johncock with us. I'm going to go to Wayne. Some of you attended the session that we ran with Wayne just a couple of weeks ago. Wayne, I'd like to, if you don't mind, please, share your reflections on what you've heard tonight, the ideas that have been discussed, talk about yourself in your own situation if you want to. Wayne, what would you like to say before we go to the Q&A? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. A lot of that really resonated with me, particularly about how to move on with your life. All those things you've said is completely what's happened to me. I joined Andy and the TTF probably about 18 months ago. I was completely lost to find any decent support groups out there. My situation was I got done over by insider fraud, an employee at the Bank of America. I exposed the criminal in my mind, and like my wife really hates how this has just dragged on and really impacted our lives. Steve, from my point of view, I won the day I spoke up. The fella's in jail for 7 years. He'd had a history of evading the law. Police had let him go. He kept doing it, but I got him. And amazingly, as you've said, I've had zero help from the police, from the ICO. I'm a technology person. I know how data protection works. They don't want to impose any action against the Bank of America. The Bank of America just closed me down. I just feel like I can't win against these people. I've had 2 documentaries done on TV, which has been helpful, but really, people have supported me. It's flushed out a few other crimes, but not much has happened about that. We had no financial benefit in any way. I've lost a business. Our home's under repossession. I'm on the mental health breathing space. I'm a vulnerable adult. It's horrible, but I'm not going to let these bastards beat me because I'm too good for them. If they want to hide away and do whatever they want to do and don't speak up, uh, that's their problem. But I feel like I'm a winner every day for the way I've fought and stood up for myself. And your words and the stuff that you're doing only really reaffirms that for me personally. And like there's a few people on the call here who have been magnificent help to me in terms of support through the TTF. I don't really want to miss anyone out. We've got Nigel, we've got Mark, we've got Brian, Andy especially and his team. Without them, and like you spoke about, Ian, well, I don't like to say it, but I may not be here today. But if not for their fine support and encouragement and just keeping me together, um, I've got a lot of green shoots in my life. My wife is fantastic. My girls are fantastic. I've got grandkids. I've got a lot of good friends. I enjoy the positive things in life. So, like I said, I'm not going to let these bastards beat me. I won when I spoke up and put this fella in jail. And if the police, the ICO, the FCA don't want to help society, they can Foxtrot Oscar, as far as I'm concerned. But that's it, Andy. So I hope that was all right.
No, thank you very much, Wayne. Thank you. Thanks for what you said just now. Thanks for what you said in the meeting a couple of weeks ago. Thank you
Andy,
very
sorry, Wayne, I'd just like to say, I honestly think you're an inspiration. You
Thank you.
really are. The way you keep going, and I think it's wonderful what you've achieved and what you're continuing to achieve. I take my hat off to you. I think you're a wonderful man. I'm looking forward at some stage to take you down the pub and we'll have a few pints, put the world to rights. You really are an inspiration.
And you've been great for me, Brian. I think the other thing I should say, I've issued proceedings against the ICO in the Small Claims Court this week. I'm going to do it against the Bank of America. Uh, that way they can't go me for funds. Um, but I just want to see what happens. But I have issued proceedings and started that. Whatever, that will be on their record. I don't think I'll get anywhere because I think we saw from the like the APPG and the FCA stuff, Andy, they say the FCA have total discretion over what decisions they make. I will be magnanimously agreed that I've done the right thing, but they'll say the ICO have total discretion over all their decisions. So I'm not anticipating much there. But no, thanks again.
Wayne, thank you. At the very, very least, you'll be a stone in their shoe, as they say. You know, just annoy the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne. Brian, let's go to Brian. Let's go to Nigel. Let's go to a few other folks just to share your reflections on the broad idea. The broad idea is to find a way to try to create a sense of, if you like, camaraderie and direction and hope for people who might be, from time to time, a bit down in the dumps, for want of a better phrase, as a consequence of what's happened. Brian Hall, your thoughts on that, then we'll go to Nigel Pence, then we'll go to Mark Bannister. Just let's open up a discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I got shafted by Lloyds Bank back in 2009. They subjected me to mistakes and mis-selling, non-compliant actions, and failures to address all the problems they created. I had a little management consultancy, good little business in the financial services sector, but I traded on my reputation. And what happened was because of all the problems they created what's called a restraint of trade. So they registered arrears and then defaults against me, which meant that I couldn't find work. because the first thing one of my clients would do, because there are fitness and proprietary standards in the industry, was perform a credit search. And then that would be, I was well known. So if one person did a credit search and found I had defaults, then that would ricochet around the whole industry and my reputation would be destroyed. So, and then I found I couldn't rent a place to live. I had to sell my home because of all this. And then I found I couldn't rent a place to live. So I've been destitute and homeless from time to time. I first encountered Andy around the time that I was homeless again. And I was working out of the library, and I published a paper called The Killing Bank, which focused on me, but the sort of wider picture, so many people. I looked at all the various statistics and so on, and I reckoned that Lloyds were probably responsible for the equivalent of a Southall rail crash every 6 weeks in avoidable suicides. And so I sent the Killing Bank paper in with two objectives: one, to affect positive change, and the other, to get some compensation. Very naive of me to think that they would do anything. Actually, they gave me a bit of money to clear all the accounts that they'd sold on the vulture funds, but that was it. So it was around that time I encountered Andy, and finally, earlier for January 2024, I went on hunger strike. I thought, this is a way of getting attention. Because the problem is, how do you prove the proximate cause of this suicide being Lloyd's actions? I thought, well, I'll just do it. I'll just end my life, but I'll have all the evidence that the reason I did that was Lloyd's. And it was Andy who stepped forward, and he was absolutely bloody determined that I wasn't going to go ahead with this hunger strike. So over a week, he introduced me to so many different people who all told me it was a bloody stupid thing to be doing, and there were better ways of achieving those objectives. So I thought, okay, fine. To be honest, I was at a point where I just didn't care anymore, to be honest. And I think probably the overarching feeling I had, and what made me come off the hunger strike, was it would have been impolite to Andy, after all his efforts, and also mentioning Ian Davis, if I hadn't have done, I just run out of options, and Andy was saying, here's an option. So he and I have sort of worked together on various different things that we still do. And we have different views at times, but I think it's a productive relationship, and we're quite creative together. What I've done is just recently I revisited The Killing Bank. I've rewritten it to make it a bit punchier. The bottom line is that if Lloyds are responsible for a gross breach of their duty of care, they could be criminally prosecuted for corporate manslaughter. So it's a very different thing from going after them in the private courts. This is a criminal prosecution. There's no statute of limitations on this, and it just needs one to really put the wind up them. So I'm just in the process now of kicking that off. I've written to my MP. I've asked my MP to forward a copy of it onto the Treasury, and then on from there to the FCA and the Ombudsman. Once those balls are rolling, I'll copy Lloyd's in, and then there's a whole raft of other stuff I'm going to do. So that's what I've been doing. So in terms of what you've been saying, I think I'm 100% behind it. I really am. One of the things I'm interested in is psychology, and particularly childhood psychology and individuation and separation, all those sorts of things, all the things that go wrong because of parenting deficits when children are growing up when they're little, when they're 2 or 3. By the time we get past that, we have our character, personality is pretty well formed, and we have a model of the world that we live with. And the problem, I think, when something like this happens to people, is that it's a bit like being on a battlefield, and all of a sudden your personality that served you well through your life is shattered because you're experiencing things that are so much outside what you consider to be reasonable or correct or whatever, and it makes you reevaluate the very core of who you are. And so I think very often for people, when they experience these sorts of things, it is like a battlefield. It is like PTSD, because it shatters your your faith in everyone around you and all the institutions you should be able to trust and are properly regulated. And it shatters your faith in yourself. And it does enormous damage. And then you have the problem of trying to get back on your feet financially, socially, and every other way, but you're also trying to put yourself back together again psychologically. And I think potentially, even if you do sort of make some progress on the logistical, on the physical side of things, you could be left with some very substantial scars and broken bones that don't heal properly psychologically. So again, I'm rambling a bit now, but I'm 100% behind you, because I think it's not only going to be helpful in terms of people, digging themselves out of the situation financially, but it's also going to be extremely useful in terms of them putting themselves out and actually coming out maybe a better person than they went in. So I'll shut up now.
Brian, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian. Again, that's worthy of, really is worthy of applause. It's been so lovely to get to know you, Brian. It's been bloody marvelous. It really has. There are several people there's just such synergy there. Folks like yourself. And another one is Mr. Nigel Cairns. We speak frequently. Nigel, your thoughts as succinctly as you can, if you don't mind. So I want to get around as many people as possible. Your thoughts in broad terms about what we're collectively trying to do. We recognise it's experimental, but I know you understand the general direction of travel here. What do you think, Nigel?
Well, firstly, I want to say thank you very much to Steve for his excellent presentation, and I very much applaud your completely selfless approach to helping others, and that, of course, is massively encouraging and inspiring to everybody. It's a real shot in the arm. From my perspective, I'd just like to comment that I think an awful lot of people in TTF are in the position where the harm and the damage is very much ongoing. And I think for a lot of people, it would be difficult to say, well, we're not yet in a position, or I'm not yet in a position where I can sort of fully say I can start a recovery period, because I'm still in the middle, very much in the middle in my case, of trying to quarterize what the problem is. I think I could only sort of encapsulate a recovery direction more successfully if I thought that that phase had come to an end. Sadly, for many of us, that's not the case. And so for me, perhaps more the empowering objective is the trying to attack the cause rather than treat the symptoms of the financial harm that we all see so widely. Because definitely we can all help each other and help ourselves. But for me, the absolutely most important thing is to stop the continuation of the damage. And I don't feel, unless that is being tackled properly, that I could fully focus on anything else. So that's a sort of overwhelming approach. And one thing that I'd just like to add, when you had your list of the regulators, the Treasury Select Committee, and what have you, the most important category for me there was missing completely, and that is our elected representatives, our MPs. They should be front and centre. They have the capability and the duty for attacking the organisations that you've identified. And we very much need to force them, if necessary, to attack the problems, that their constituents are suffering, and too many of them are sitting on the fence or turning a blind eye. And so for me also, lobbying and political engagement is really would be an equally cathartic direction to go in. So yeah, I'll stop there. There's lots more that I obviously could say, but in the interests of being succinct, I'll finish there. Thank you.
Nigel, and thank you again for everything you do behind the scenes, volunteering, and what we just said. So the idea of fixing the problem as well as managing the symptoms has got to be key to this. It's got to be. So sometimes I use the analogy. It's like you walk into your kitchen and there's a puddle of water on the floor, and you realise there's been a leak, so you mop up the puddle of water. You know, wouldn't that be daft if that's all that you did without then going to find out what the source of the leak was and fixing the broken pipe or whatever it might have been? If we just mop up the water without fixing the leak, then we're just going to lock ourselves into perpetuity and we'll never really deal with the problem itself. So, well said, Nigel. We'll go to Mark Bannister, then to Chuck Hodgkinson, and then anybody else that may want to chip in. Okay, so Mark, I know you to be a very, 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 very thoughtful person. What are your thoughts in general terms about what we're trying to do here? I know you're a big, big, big fan, and frankly, something of an expert on ChatGPT. And I can honestly tell you that Steve makes very good use of ChatGPT as part of the process he uses. Mark Bannister, what would you like to say? Thank you.
Steve, first of all, thank you very much. Very interesting, very commendable. I'd like to follow on from what Nigel was saying. I too fell foul of the bank 17 years ago. 17 years of abuse, 17 years of lies, 17 years of corruption, 17 years of people who could have solved this problem on day one, instead of which they've magnified the problem and they've made it worse. And they did this with intent. They've never wanted to sort this out. This is a scheme of capture. And they're still doing it to this day. In fact, today I got I asked my MP to send a letter that I wrote to the bank and their solicitors last week, to send it to a senior executive within the bank. And he responded to her today, and she sent the response on to me. And it's effectively, it's with our lawyers and with our recoveries team, end of, we're not getting involved. And that's just appalling. You cannot run an institution. I mean, I have a friend of mine who has a carpet business, wonderful man, and he trades on his reputation. It's everything. All his customers know each other, and he deals a lot with local authorities and schools and hospitals and all of these sorts of institutions. They all speak to each other, and he protects his reputation as his primary asset, because that's where his business comes from. And that's what should be happening with the banks and with all these other financial institutions, and yet it doesn't. And we have people sitting at the top of these institutions who have just abdicated their morality. It's gone away from them. They do not have any in terms of their professional life. Now, I'm sure that they go home and they're fine, upstanding citizens in their domestic lives. But truth is, and excuse me, I'm going to use a foul term, so anybody who objects, close your ears. They're a bunch of scumbags. End of. And these people need to understand that they need to be proficient in all aspects of their life, right? Not just very good business people and corporately, and they, you know, observe all the mores and what have you of society, but they've also got to do that on a human level. Okay, I cannot go round taking my frustrations out on little old ladies and shoving them into the road, thinking that that would be a good idea, or stealing their handbags, and nor do I want to, and yet these people do. Now, again, we have another group, lawyers, who the whole system is set up to ensure that they do more and more of this. That's what they're paid for, and they're very skilled at it. But ultimately, they have to know that that is immoral. It's wrong. And if this was being done to them, they wouldn't stand for it. Now, one of my greatest friends is a surgeon, and he spends his life seeing people he's a cancer surgeon, and he spends his life seeing people in desperation and trying to do his very best for them. And he says sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but every day he goes in there with absolute commitment. And this should be, the financial industry should be no different. As regards, Andy, your thoughts around a fund, I think it's very well intentioned, but I don't think actually it's the most effective way forward, because 1%, it would be a great start, but I doubt you get it. You'd be doing well to get 0.1 of 1%. But more than that, I would tell you there's a better way forward. And that's to steal a march on, and I need to think about this more because this thought is just coming into my head and I haven't formulated it fully or properly, but I'll just throw it out there. You and I had a conversation offline yesterday on a different subject, and we need to take a leaf out of these financial institutions' book, and they all insure all these losses. And we ought to be doing the same. We ought to be demanding that everything's insured. And you can't buy a product unless it is insured. And I need to think much more deeply about where that goes and how it operates. But
you're taking me back about 6 years, 5-6 years, to an event I ran in Boston, Massachusetts. A gentleman there formed a similar set of thoughts with the same underlying logic. Let's revisit that, Mark. Let's revisit that idea. The idea basically was that you're not allowed to put a product into the market unless it's got its potential toxicity is underwritten.
yeah, and guess who has to underwrite it?
The regulator?
No,
Who?
all the participants.
Okay.
They become self-regulators. It makes regulation in their interests. It removes the conflict.
Fascinating. We'll come back to that, Mark. Thank you, Mark, very much. I noticed that Digger Harris has also expressed concerns about the 1% idea. We'll revisit those thoughts and those ideas for sure. Thank you, Mark, very much. Chuck Hodgkinson. Chuck, if you would like to, you often do in the Phillips Trust Building Society events that we run, you often chip in with your thoughts. Please take yourself off mute, Robert, and share what you think about tonight and the ideas we've got.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
I must apologise for showing up 20 minutes late to tonight's meeting. Sadly, a friend of ours just down the road I've had to rush him into hospital, and we got back late. Anyway, remarks about the meeting. I'm amazed that Mark Bannister has managed to recover from the shock of the where the people were hiding money and that in the recent meeting that you had. Regards the business of losing so much money, it was the family trust in our case. My wife and I both had a trust, and the entire thing vanished. My hero actually is Andy. He probably doesn't realise that, but at a point where we almost lost our sanity, Andy was most encouraging, and the rest of the people at the TTF, the APPG, the Phillips Trust Action Group, when you finally break through the silence and the non-response from all of the authorities and get somebody with an ear, it makes a fantastic difference. I'm sure that rest of the guys on this meeting that's been affected in this way, it's the realization that you're not actually on your own. You're not the only one that's lost out in such a bad way. And the feelings of, oh, shall I do it under a train or will it be a double-decker bus? You can laugh at it now, of course, but at the time, these thoughts, you don't talk about them, especially not in front of your wife. She stood here now, but amazing how stunned you are when you suddenly find that the authorities that you expect would respond in a positive way, or even encouraging or sympathetic. None of that's there. And then a guy like Andy that took upon himself to set up an organization to try and get an ear so that the victims got some kind of exposure to try and get recompense from these criminals. I mean, the guy that ran our scheme, he's living in Mayfair now. He's got millions of pounds, and he's made it out of victims of safe hands that some of you will know. We're talking about Richard Philip Wells, and then of course an absolute fortune out of the trust and the way that went down. So I appreciate what the gentleman said tonight about trying to restore your, if you like, your life, ambitions and actions. My actions and ambitions are actually have come to an end now. I've retired, and I've got to a point where I'd just like to calm down a little bit. There's enough on the news of trouble around the world to worry about than for me to suddenly start wanting to set up another. This would have been okay 30 years ago. It's time to have a rest now. But the odd thing, I say Andy's smiling, that one of the funniest things that happened to us was the response from the police finally that we'd reported all the criminals to, and of course they've done nothing in that respect other than what they sent to us. We got an email, and it was a department of the police in Manchester that was supposed to give support to rape victims. That department wanted to try and help us to psychologically, I suppose, recover from what was said to be rape. And in my head, I'm thinking, is this monetary rape then? Because it ain't the other thing. And how on earth do they twist something that's a financial crime into something that's, you know, a complete twist? It just absolutely amazes me, that one. But anyway, thanks very much, Andy. I've nothing further to add. Thanks for the meeting.
You're very, very welcome. Always enjoy listening to what Chuck has to say. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you. If anybody else would like to come in with any comments or questions or ideas, any observations, any thoughts, please do wave your hand at me, digitally or otherwise. Otherwise, what we'll be doing in a moment, just going back to Steve, will be wrapping the session up and bringing things to a close. I think we're going to go back to Steve. I can see we've relaxed Wayne. There's a very, very relaxed looking Wayne. There he is. Steve, back to you. Back to you.
Sorry, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, Andy, I've had a hard day, a long drive. I'm just relaxing.
Carry on. Carry on.
My eyes.
I was putting.
I would never go to sleep in one of your meetings, Andy. You know that.
Like a relaxed baby there. A lovely way. So, Steve Colley, back to you, sir, to wrap things up and bring our session to a close tonight. And thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for listening and for being here at this late hour. Really interested in what you each have said and contributed. The thing that sticks out for me, the one thing that I kind of think answers a lot of the questions, and it comes back, Brian, to what you say about psychology. And there's a great book by a chap called Richard Barrett, which he's written a book called The New Psychology of Human Wellbeing. And basically it talks about this journey from cradle to grave of psychological development that we go through, where initially it's about survival, then it's about safety, then it's about self-esteem. It's basically the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs, if you can think about, any of you familiar with that, and how we make up the kind of, for the first part of that journey to about the age of 40 is about meeting our basic needs. And that is the need to survive, the need to feel safe, and the need to feel secure. And by kind of mid-20s, most adults, providing their childhood has been okay, kind of reach that state of independence. And then it's about the stage of individualization where you start to discover who you are. And then there's a moment of exploration about who you really are, because up to that stage, it's all been about material wealth and physical things, what you think, what you feel emotionally, and you've never really found your soul desires at that stage. The next stage of the journey is about self-actualization, and then it's about finding your tribe, people who are on the same page with you, who want to collaborate in order to combine their skills and talents to make the world a better place for having lived, which is the final stage, of self-transcending, serving stage of life, which happens in our 60s. Apparently, that's where we kind of get to if everything else has gone fine. What happens with financial crime? It then destroys this basic needs element. And suddenly there's this focus on basic needs again, about survival, safety, and security. And this deep desire, soul desire, becomes a secondary consideration, which is thinking what you're saying, it's not fixed. I've got a leaking hole and water pouring out of it in my basic needs. And then we really never get to contemplate our soul desire, which is who we are and why we're here. It's our mission in life. We never really get to complete our mission. What I'm saying to you is that what happened could be part of your mission. It could be use that event, that skill, in order to help other people so that we can make sure this doesn't continue happening. We're not going to change the banks, the people in the banks, because they're still operating in this ego kind of centered soul. They don't know what a soul is. You know, they haven't made that connection, and they probably never will. Well, they're deliberately recruited in escalated high positions. If you're kind of soulless, egotistical, narcissistic, that kind of makes a great banker, I think. So you're never going to change them. But what we can do is try to take ownership for ourselves and try and think about, can we kind of really complete the last stage of psychological development in our lives and pass on, or are we going to keep in the hole of trying to meet our basic needs? So that's kind of where I was thinking, and I was glad to talk more about that perhaps with these sessions and try and work and help you, because my job is basically to help accelerate the journey for personal development, and that's it really. And that might be repairing the hole in your finances, in your survival, safety, and security needs. But the piece that awaits you is called significance, and that's the piece you might be missing. And if you focus too much and trying to fix a hole that can't be fixed, then that might never happen. So it's just a thought. There's a passing thought for you, Andy. So I'll hand back to you now. But thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. I do hope you take advantage of the opportunities here.
Thank you so much. It's been a really different session tonight. It's been a wonderfully, for me personally, a very wonderful opportunity to share something I'm very, very enthusiastic about with everybody. And thank you also for the many kind comments that have been made. Honestly, entirely unexpected and unsolicited. And I never really know what to say when people say nice things about me or TTF. It actually feels a bit awkward sometimes, but I really do appreciate what has been said. A lot of very nice things have been said. Can we once again, and for the final time, show our appreciation for Steve for what he's done for us tonight, frankly, for what he's been doing with me for a period of a few months, and for laying on 6 sessions completely free of charge for those that want to join them on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. We'll wrap it up there, folks. Thank you all very much indeed. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow, Steve.